Hello students. So, welcome to this lecture number 8 of instrumental methods of analysis, and today we are going to discuss about the fluorimetry. In this lecture we are going to discuss about the concept of a singlet, doublet and triplet state along with the various deactivation processes. So, as we all know that as per the Pauli's exclusion principle, no two electron can have the same set of all 4 quantum number values. So, this restriction generally uh, requires that no more than 2 electrons can occupy an orbital and must have the opposite spin states. So, in that condition where the electron spins in any orbital are in the paired state. So, this condition is called as a paired state. So, now because of the spin pairing, that most molecules exhibit no net magnetic field and are considered as a diamagnetic. So, diamagnetic compounds are like neither attracted nor repelled by the static magnetic field. In contrast, the molecules or the any reactive species that contain the unpaired electron have some value of magnetic moment and are generally attracted by the magnetic field, and thus those are generally known as a paramagnetic compounds. So, this spin state generally can make a compound diamagnetic or paramagnetic as per their behavior in the static magnetic field. So, the molecular electronic state in which all spins are paired is considered as the singlet state. So, singlet state is that state where in any molecule all present electrons are in a paired state. So, no unpaired electron is present in that particular molecule. But in case of like free radicals which have unpaired electrons in their shell, that state is they exist in a doublet state. So, their ground state is actually the doublet state. Now, in this case two possible orientation for the odd electron in any magnetic field can be possible. Either it would be like aligned with the field or it would be opposed to the external magnetic field. So, we will discuss this in detail how we calculate this singlet, doublet and triplet state and based upon the spin multiplicity rules. So, when one of a pair of electron of molecule is generally excited to the higher energy level by supplying energy, particular amount of energy. So, an excited state is generally produced, and that excited state may be either a singlet or it may be a triplet state. So, what is the basic difference? The basic difference between this excited singlet and excited triplet state is the pairing. In excited singlet state, spins are paired with the ground state electron that is already present, whereas in case of excited triplet state, the spins of two electron become unpaired and those are having a parallel orientation. So, the excited triplet state generally has less energy as compared to the corresponding singlet state. One thing that you should always keep in mind that singlet to singlet transitions are always allowed, whereas the singlet to triplet transition, that means from the ground state to the excited triplet state transitions are forbidden and those are not allowed. So, this can be understood with the help of spin multiplicity rule. So, that states that spin multiplicity rule says that 2s plus 1 equation. So, where S stands for the spins of all electrons present in particular orbital. So, in this case when we talk about the ground singlet state, it has a 2 electrons with the opposite spins like this. So, that condition is called as a spin paired condition. Now, spin of a single electron that is facing upward is generally represented by plus half, and the spin of a electron that is pointing downward is represented by minus 1 by 2. So, the overall spin of this will be plus 1 by 2 plus minus 1 by 2. So, that will become 0. So, the overall spin of that ground singlet state would become 0. So, now if we replace this 0 into this spin multiplicity equation, so that will become 2 into 0 plus 1, that would be 1. So, that is why it is called as a singlet state. So, when the spins are paired, so according to the spin multiplicity rule, that state is called as a singlet state. Whereas, in case of free radicals, so free radicals generally have a one odd electron into their shell. So, suppose that electron can have a plus 1 by 2 spin, or it can have a minus 1 by 2 same spin. So, if we put this free radical situation here, so this S would become 1 by 2. So, 2 into 1 by 2 plus 1 will become 1 plus 1, that is 2. So, that is why we have discussed earlier that free radicals have a doublet spin states. So, this is the reason why the ground state of a free radical is the doublet. And when coming to this excited singlet state, so in this case excited singlet state, that one electron is jumped to the excited state. Now, one thing to be noticed here, that the position or the spins of the electrons that was in the ground state is still maintained in the excited singlet state. So, still it has a plus 1 by 2 spin and minus 1 by 2 spin. So, this will also give you a value of 1. So, it is the excited state, but it has a spin value of 1. So, multiplicity value will be singlet. Whereas, when this situation changes little bit and the spin of the excited state electron changes. So, like in this case it is 1 by 2, and if it is also 1 by 2. So, if it changes, then the overall spin will become plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 2, that will be 1. So, 2 into 1 plus 1 will give you the value 3. So, that is why the excited state where spins are unpaired is called as a triplet state. So, based upon this spin multiplicity rule, we classify the ground state and the excited states in the singlet, doublet or the triplet states. So, the singlet, doublet or triplet state classification is based upon this spin multiplicity rule value. Generally, the average lifetime of any excited triplet state can be like from 10 to power minus 4 seconds to few more seconds, compared to the average lifetime of excited singlet state, that is 10 to power approximately near to 10 to power minus 8. So, we can clearly see that the lifespan or lifetime of the triplet state is quite longer as compared to the excited singlet state. So, when the electron jumps to the triplet state, so it spends a relatively more time there as compared to the excited singlet state. So, this has some other consequences that we will discuss later. So, one thing also you should keep in mind that properties of this excited triplet state are generally differ from the excited singlet state. And like for example, as we discussed earlier, that when the molecule is paramagnetic in this generally the molecule is paramagnetic in when it is in triplet state, and it is diamagnetic when it is in the singlet state. So, this can be well explained with the help of the Jablonski diagram. Now, this Jablonski diagram is can be used to explain the excitation or absorption and the emission process, because till now we have discussed about the UV and the visible spectroscopy, and that mainly involves the absorption principle, but this fluorimetry is generally based upon the emission principle. So, here we are more focused about the we are noting the emission intensity, and based upon this intensity of the emission intensity, we are getting or finding some structural information about any molecule. So, Jablonski diagram, according to this diagram, the dark lines you can see like this and this. These dark lines are generally indicating the electronic energy levels, whereas the lighter lines just above the dark lines are indicating the vibrational energy levels, and each electronic level comprises of several vibrational energy levels. So, when we supply the energy, so of suppose lambda 1, so absorption take place from this excited from the ground state to the excited singlet state. The singlet state can be S1 or it can be S2, any of them, and the excitation would be into any of the vibrational level. Now, this is the lambda 1, this is the lambda 2. Now, when this electron jumps to this any of the vibration level, then to change the electronic state, it has to come to this ground electronic state from the excited vibrational level. So, it has to lose some amount of energy that it has absorbed, and this process of losing the amount from the vibrational energy levels is known as a vibrational relaxation. So, this is one of the method of deactivation or relaxation. So, after the losing some amount of energy, then it come to the ground electronic state, lower electronic state. Now, from this electronic state, it can jump to the another singlet state, and like from S2 to S1. So, conversion or jumping off from one singlet state to another singlet state is generally known as a internal conversion. So, this is the process number 2, internal conversion. So, after internal conversion, now it can either lose its energy and it come to the ground state without any emission. Case number 2, it can emit the longer wavelength of light, that is generally the fluorescence, or in the third case it can jump to the excited triplet state in this case, and when from this excited triplet state it come to the ground state. So, this process is generally known as a phosphorescence. So, that we are not going to discuss. So, we are mainly focusing on the fluorescence. So, now one thing to remember, that direct excitation from the ground state to the excited triplet state is generally forbidden, and the molecules excited to this S1 or S2, which are the singlet state, rapidly loses the excess amount of energy with the help of the vibrational relaxation, that is the radiationless process. The rate of photon absorption is very fast and rapid, and it take place in about 10 to power minus 14 to 10 to power minus 15 second. So, this is the time taken for absorption of energy or the light, or to cause the excitation. After this, the fluorescence emission generally occurs at a significantly lower rate, that is around like taking 10 to power minus 5 to 10 to power minus 10 seconds, whereas the phosphorescence emission mainly requires 10 to power minus 4 to 10 seconds, or even it can last longer. So, we can clearly see that absorption is very fast and the rapid process, whereas fluorescence emission is relatively slower as compared to the absorption, and phosphorescence is even more slower process than both absorption or excitation or the fluorescence process. So, this phosphorescence is a like a delayed emission that takes the longer time. So, now coming on to the deactivation processes that we have discussed, and one by one. So, the deactivation processes are generally classified or categorized into two broad categories. One is the radiationless processes and another is the radiation emission process. So, emission involves the fluorescence and phosphorescence, and the radiationless processes involves the vibrational relaxation, internal conversion, intersystem crossings, etc. But what would be the most favorable route for the deactivation? The one that take place at a rapidly at very rapid times. So, the favored route to the ground state is the one that minimize the lifetime of the excited state. So, that process that decrease the lifetime of the excited state would be the more favorable route for deactivation. So, if the deactivation by fluorescence is rapid with respect to the radiationless process, then this would be favored. If radiationless process takes less time as compared to the fluorescence, then that would be favored. So, deactivation processes can be the vibrational relaxation, it can be internal conversion, it can be external conversion, this can be the intersystem crossing, or you may also say the phosphorescence. Phosphorescence is also another like phenomena that has the emission. In fact, you can write here the fluorescence also. So, the fluorescence and phosphorescence, these two processes involves the emission of the light, whereas the all other processes are generally the radiation less deactivation processes. So, our discussion would mainly be focused around this radiation less deactivations and fluorescence. So, let us start. Number 1, vibrational relaxation. So, a molecule may be generally promoted to any of the vibrational level during the electronic transition, as we have discussed earlier, that each and every electronic level comprises of several vibrational energy levels. So, when this ground state electron jumps to the excited state, it can go to the any of the vibrational level. Now, from that vibrational energy it has to lose to come to the electronic state. So, that would be generally done by the collisions or between the molecules. So, during this collision they transfer the energy, and this slightly may increase the temperature also of the medium or the solvent. So, the vibrational relaxation is so efficient generally that the average lifetime of the excited molecule is 10 to power minus 12 or even lesser, and the fluorescence always involve a transition from the lower vibrational level to the excited electronic state, as we have already discussed. So, the fluorescence band for a given electronic transition is displaced towards the lower frequency, or we can say the longer wavelength from the absorption band. So, this shift of the position of the fluorescence band from the original absorption band is called as a Stokes shift. So, suppose like this is the diagram, and here we have the wavelength. So, this is the absorption spectra or excitation spectrum. This is the excitation spectrum, and its emission spectrum would be observed at the higher wavelength here, emission spectrum. So, the shifting of the emission spectrum from the original excitation position is generally called as a Stokes shift. And why this is taking place? Why this is happening? Because of the extra time spent by the electron to come from upper vibration level to the lower electronic energy level, and from that energy level it will come to the any of the ground state energy level. So, this extra time spent by the electron from the upper vibration level to the electronic level, then to the ground state, makes it like loss of some energy, and loss of this energy we already know that energy is inversely proportional to the wavelength. So, if energy is decreasing, so obviously wavelength is increasing, and this increase in wavelength is mainly responsible for the Stokes shift. The internal conversion number 2 is the internal conversion. Internal conversion is the crossover between the two states of the same multiplicity, either from singlet to singlet state or from triplet to triplet state. The particularly it is efficient when two electronic energy levels are sufficiently very close to each other, or we can say there is some overlapping between the energy level, then this the probability of interconversion generally then increases. So, the excited molecule generally proceeds from higher electronic state to the lower vibrational state of the lower electronic state via a series of the several vibrational relaxations and internal conversion, and then the further relaxations. So, fluorescence occurs at lambda 3 only, regardless whether the radiation lambda 1 was or lambda 2 was responsible for the excitation. So, this can be seen with the help of the quinine. So, quinine has a two excitation wavelengths of 250 nanometer and 350 nanometer, whereas its fluorescence is generally observed at 450 nanometer. So, this increase of the wavelength of emission is the Stokes shift. So, internal conversion may also result in the pre-dissociation process. Now, in this pre-dissociation process, the electron move from higher electronic state to the upper vibrational level of the lower electronic state, in which the vibrational energy is great enough to cause the rupture of the bond. So, large molecule have high probability of pre-dissociation. Now, pre-dissociation is generally different from the dissociation process. The dissociation do not involve the interconversions before rupturing, whereas pre-dissociation first involve the internal conversions and then it causes the rupture of the bond. Next is the external conversions. External conversions involve the interaction or the energy transfers between the excited molecule and the solvent. So, the energy goes to the surroundings or the solvent. So, this condition tends to reduce the you can say the number of collision between the particle when the viscosity is high and temperature is low. So, external conversions can be decreased by decreasing the temperature and increasing the viscosity, because by decreasing the temperature and increasing the viscosity we can control the collisions and hence external conversions. Next is the intersystem crossing. and this is the crossover between the from the singlet state to the triplet state, and probability is generally high when there is some overlapping between the singlet and the triplet state. So, this is the most common in molecules that contain the heavy atoms like iodine or bromine, and that effect is generally called as the heavy atom effect. So, this mainly arises due to the spin orbital interactions that increase the presence of such atoms. Means in presence of the heavy atoms, the interaction between the spin and the orbitals are generally increased, and that favors the intersystem crossing, and it causes the change in the spins from the paired state to the unpaired state. And the another, on the other hand, the presence of any paramagnetic species also increase these chances of intersystem crossings, like for example, oxygen. The molecular oxygen in solution generally enhance the intersystem crossings, and it promotes the transitions from the singlet to the triplet state, and hence it decreases the fluorescence, but it increases the phosphorescence, because from triplet to the ground state emission is the phosphorescence. So, this is the last process, deactivation by phosphorescence. So, after coming to the triplet excited triplet state, then after further deactivation is can be take place by the internal conversion, by external conversion, or by the phosphorescence. So, a triplet to singlet transition is less probable. So, from triplet state it cannot go back to the singlet state. So, it has to come down to the ground state by either the vibration relaxations, by external conversions, or by phosphorescence processes. So, the lifetime of phosphorescence is even more longer, that ranges from 10 to power minus 4 to 10 seconds or even more. So, the emission from such a transition may persist for some time after irradiation has ceased. So, this is the main distinguishing feature between the fluorescence and the phosphorescence, that phosphorescence lasts till the radiation is falling on the molecule. When you cut off the light, still if you are able to see the emission, then it is due to the phosphorescence, that is the phosphorescence. So, from the excited state to the ground state, deactivation can be radiationless or can be with the help of the emission. Emission can be fluorescence or in the form of a phosphorescence, whereas radiationless deactivations includes the vibrational relaxations, intersystem crossings, internal conversions. So, these are the references that you can refer for further study. Thank you very much.